Oh man, we're here with COFOH Live and Undead. I'm here with my guest, Robert Muratore. And for those of you who aren't aware, COFOH is Colorado Festival of Horror. And in the audience tonight, we've got Brett and Elise. We had the opportunity to do this at the house. And also, since it's Black Friday, I hope everybody had a great Turkey Day. Good Thanksgiving. I know I'm stuffed. I think had some great haggis. My family's not watching this. But we had some good dry turkey too. My mom doesn't watch this either. So anyway, yeah, Robert, thanks for coming out. For those of you that aren't aware, Robert is a filmmaker, and more specifically, you're a cinematographer, director.
Sometimes co-producer,
Nice.
Every now and then, and I direct something, but mostly that's my gig, yeah.
Okay.
Cinematography, co-producing.
No, that's cool. You've been a part of some of my favorite, films of recent: Dock of the Dead, Memory, and then. And I keep watching the Hitchcock film title.
7852.
7852.
It's a hard one.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and what got you into film and filmmaking?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was always into going to the movies. I grew up in a small city in Wyoming, and there wasn't a whole lot to do, so I found myself at the theater quite a bit. And I also grew up in the age of Star Wars and all those great, horror sci-fi films of the 80s, Blade Runner and John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh yeah.
I guess one of my earliest horror films was Jaws. I saw it when it came out. I was probably like seven or eight or something like that.
Okay.
And it traumatized me, and I still have sharp dreams to this day, I think.
Did you see it in the theater?
It was a drive-in.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes.
Wow. That would traumatize you.
My family should not have taken me to see that movie at that age. That was irresponsible of them. So that's one of the earliest horror films. But I really loved horror films when I was a kid. I mean, they scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
But I loved them. I even remember. Did you ever see a Larry Cohen movie called It's Alive?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mutant Baby. So
yep.
I remember seeing the trailer for that on TV and having nightmares just from watching the trailer.
Okay.
But of course, when it came out on HBO, I had to see it.
Yeah.
So
most definitely.
And it just scared the shit out of me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something about those little creatures that can be under your bed or in your closet, or
right.
That you can't quite see coming.
Yeah.
So.
I had the same response to Phantasm with the little people that helped out at the funeral home.
Mm-hmm.
Got basically the dead people that got condensed in another pocket dimension or something like that, and then come back. And,
I love that movie too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely remember that.
Man, that one freaked me out. Yeah, I think I jumped on It's Alive way later, like probably when I was in art school. That's when I was introduced to that film. So I was like, probably outgrew the it being spooky for me. But
sure.
But yeah, Jaws. I got introduced to that at an early age. I probably shouldn't, but I didn't have to see it on the big screen. So it's just like, oh, the fish is this big.
Yeah, I wanted to see Alien on the big screen, but I ended up having to sneak it on HBO when I was a kid.
Yeah,
but, again, that had a huge effect on me.
Yeah,
especially the chestburster scene, and I mean, it was an amazing film.
Yeah,
and frightening.
Yeah, that one incredibly suspenseful. I mean, it's essentially sci-fi horror, and it was just masterful in its minimalism. Not unveiling that terror just right away either.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of saving that stuff for the end. So, but that's a good segue to your recent film, Memory.
Sure. Well, it's actually not our most recent film. Our most recent film was Leap of Faith, which is basically a movie about William Friedkin talking about The Exorcist. So it was just a one interview film.
Oh my gosh.
We were lucky enough to have it premiere at Venice. and that was really fun to work on as well, because The Exorcist was also another horror movie that scared the hell out of me when I was a child. Another movie I should not have seen until I was older, but that was, there's a whole list of those. So
me too. That was playing on TV at my grandma's house, and she was babysitting me, and my parents and her were in the other room, and I was watching that, and I remember leaving a nice wet stain on the carpet. Thanks, Grandma. I miss you.
I mean, that movie still holds up to this day. It's creepy as hell,
Yeah.
That the supernatural elements to it. But anyway, yeah. So, I mean, those two films were, I helped make those films with my company, Exhibit A Pictures. Mm-hmm. We used to all be based in Denver, but we're kind of scattered now. It's Alexander Philippe is the director, and Carrie Roy is the producer for the most part. And I shoot all of our films and help produce when I can. So we've had a pretty good string of films the last few. Our first film was The People versus George Lucas back in 2010.
I remember that. I did go see that at a screening at I think it was at the Tivoli or Metro campus for the Stars Denver Film Fest, when it was Stars. When they had the stars in front of it, and they were the big sponsor.
Sure.
But I remember seeing that because I think and I didn't know you at the time, but Jeff Pointer I think also worked on that film too with you guys. Yeah. So we went there and got to see that. So yeah, that was great. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, it was a lot more guerrilla. At that point, we didn't really have funding. We had all just kind of pitch in, and so we kind of cobbled it together over a few years. We had a hard time getting good interviews, though we were able to get Neil Gaiman and Gary Kurtz and a few others that certainly helped validate the film and our process. But had a lot of rejections. I mean, you always get rejections when you're trying to make a movie, trying to make a documentary about a movie or anything else. But yeah, it was a great first film, and it kind of got helped us get our foot in the door. We've been making mostly, all of our films are pop culture to some degree, right? Even our probably our least known film, which was our follow-up, which is called The Life and Times of Paul the Psychic Octopus.
I remember seeing that too. That was
You're one of the few. Thank you for seeing that.
Yeah,
I really appreciate that.
We also saw that at the Denver Film Fest a couple of years later.
Yeah, that one was also like kind of rough and tumble. We had very little money, and we were basically using trips for film festivals for People versus George Lucas to travel to these places to conduct interviews in Europe, and we did go to Russia. We went to a couple of other places, but it's mostly European.
Yeah,
but
nice.
So yeah, so and then after that was Dock of the Dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think I saw that when it first popped up on Netflix. Oh, but during one of the sessions, like one of the film sessions that you had for Dock of the Dead with George Romero when he was still alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
was it the Zombie Town Hall?
Yeah.
Max Brooks was
there. We were in
the
the audience there, and I think again, Pointer invited us because he was working on the project and stuff. So that was fantastic. What a treat to be a part of that audience.
Yeah, no, it was really hard to put that together. It was really, we ended up using a couple minutes in our film, and they actually created just like a program, a DVD for with that entire town hall.
No kidding.
Which is out there somewhere. But it was a pleasure meeting George Romero. He was the kindest guy. I mean, he kind of exemplified that stereotype of horror directors being like just the sweetest people.
Yeah.
I mean, which we found to be the case in most of our experience with those directors. But he was great. He was just a sweet guy, and pleasure to interview, pleasure to hang out with, and it really helped make that film what it is. He was one of our first interviews. So
nice. Yeah, he always seemed so endearing. But you also had like Max Brooks, who was
Mhm.
just coming off of his success with World War Z, right? The book. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that film adaptation came out at that time.
I think it was pretty close. I don't think that he was very happy with the film adaptation
Probably
because
not. Yeah.
it really had very little to do with the book. I love the book. I thought the book was
Yeah.
great. You know, it was very. It had a lot of geopolitical ideas in it too.
Right.
You know, which was kind of nice. And he loved Romero's zombies, the slow zombies. And He talks about that in our film. But,
Oh yeah, because that wasn't used in the actual film. They were the super zombies, you know. It's like I think one was Captain America, right? You saw the shit. No, I mean, it was bullshit. It was bullshit. No, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So yeah, it sounds like you're able to, while filming, organize and create like pretty unique experiences too that you're able to lens and everything.
Sure.
So yeah, were you able to? Yeah, you talk about this this piece on the Exorcist. I had no idea about that. Now,
Well, it was just it there weren't a lot of shooting days on it. We spent about 4 days with William Friedkin, and then Alexander went back and did some audio pickups with him, and so we mostly shot in LA, and then we took a trip to Kyoto because Friedkin references his experience at the Zen Gardens in Kyoto, and
nice.
Alexander really felt like it was an important part of the story, so we went there to shoot B-roll, which was that's the second time I've been there, and it's one of my favorite cities in the world. So
cool.
It was a pleasure being able to go back, and we were there during cherry blossom season, so it was
nice.
it was like a fantasy or something. It was just so beautiful, and it was hard not to get good footage there because everything was so gorgeous. So.
Oh, cool. Nice. So, you premiered that at Venice just recently?
It premiered at Venice,
nice.
And then it went to BFI, and it's. I think it's going to be there's like a special event at Sundance for it too.
No kidding.
So we were lucky to have 2 films before that premiere at Sundance, 7852 and Memory. So it's when you get into these festivals, it seems like you develop a relationship with them, and it's nice to be able to come back, and I think they like to foster repeat films from directors that that have premiered there. So it's great to have that kind of relationship.
That's fantastic. It's so yeah, just keep up that working relationship going forward with that.
I mean, you still have to get in. You still have to have a decent film. It's not like like you get one film in and everything,
and then
follows,
it's just a floodgate. You can submit whatever crap you want.
Right.
Let's just do it.
But I mean, it's more like I think it puts your film on their radar because they have so many submissions. I think one year was like 15,000 films submitted.
Yeah.
So that's quite a bit. Those festivals basically start with interns watching films and passing them along, so they have to go through like several different levels of being accepted, and sometimes good films don't make it past that first round, and it's just the way it is.
So with the Exorcist film, I mean, it's going to film festivals. You don't have a distributor now, so there's no way of knowing when the rest of us can see it.
Hopefully soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're definitely working on it.
But with Memory, you've got that distribution with Legion M, right?
Yes, they were a co-distributor, and we love Legion M. They're great people. And they're just. I mean, I've even invested in them because I believe in their whole, the way they developed their business and opened it up to the fans to be owners and investors, I think is a really cool thing. And all the people who run it are fans. They're fanboys like me, so they love watching movies. They love being involved, and I can't say enough good things about them as a company. So
that's cool. I'm also investor in them as well, and So's Brett. He was raising his hand. He's a round 5 investor, whatever that means. I think that means he's waiting for a kidney. Uh, but yeah, Elise and I went and saw Mandy last year, so
Yeah,
that really got me hooked. That's a bit of a it's a bit of a slow burn, but man, it's intense.
Have you seen Beyond the Black Rainbow? His first film.
Yes, I've got that on Blu-ray. That's pretty intense too.
That's even more esoteric, I think. But
right,
it's really great the way he. I mean, of course, I respond to those films because they take place in the '80s, even though they might not be as obvious to some people, but. Just that kind of style and that sensibility, I think that's why I like Stranger Things so much too.
The nostalgia.
Yeah, there's that factor.
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams and Super 8. I think I like that film more than a lot of people because it just, again, it felt like watching a film from the 80s, watching E.T. or, some of the other kind of Spielberg blockbuster films from that era, and you could really sense that. So
nice. Yeah. Yeah, with memory, like, well, in a number of these documentaries that you made, you alluded to the fact that you do working with Exhibit A, working on these films. You're doing these about pop culture, and they seem to be probably start out as like ideas. Of kind of homages to your childhood, to some extent. But it's interesting to sit through and watch, especially with the Hitchcock documentary and with Memory, seeing you kind of explore all these different themes and different meanings, whether they're maybe they're there or not. Sure. So it's pretty engaging and wonderfully meaty, I think. Like the title Memory, how did you guys come across or come up with that title?
Well, that was the title of Dan O'Bannon's original script for Alien. So that was definitely one of the films that we went through a lot of titles before we came up with that particular one. And his original, we got to actually see pages from the original script and a lot of his notes. Dan O'Bannon's wife, Diane, really opened up the archive to us. So we got to see a lot of great things at her place in storyboards from different artists, including Dan himself. And so it was really wonderful to see all these, these archival materials that give you a sense of how it evolved as a project. And I think we were trying to explore that quite a bit since, a lot has been said about Alien over the years. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of behind the scenes and documentary work. So coming up with stuff that hadn't been out there, was difficult, but that was certainly one of the avenues that helped us bring original content to that.
Nice. And with the Hitchcock documentary too, like, how did you guys also come up with the title for that?
Well, 7852, that's all Alexander. 7852 stands for 78 setups and 52 cuts in the shower scene itself. Okay. So, and it was referenced by a historian. I can't remember the name of the person who wrote about that, but so that's what it references.
That's a nice encapsulation then, just for that film, but also, specifically the shower scene in question.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's an amazing scene in cinema history. I mean, and again, like Psycho was a movie I saw when I was a kid as well, and I probably didn't, at the time, I probably wasn't mature enough to understand how masterful it was, until later in life when I rewatched it. But that scene is really incredible, and the fact it's so scary, and it was so scary. I mean, I think it's maybe not as scary to audiences these days because we're so jaded, everything we've seen. But back then it was horrifying.
Yeah,
it scared a whole generation of people. So it's an amazing study to try and take it apart. and Alexander did a great job.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, when you go and kind of changing gears, yeah, going into like filmmaking, with your camera work, behind the lens, what are you, what are you trying to accomplish? Doing these documentaries, doing these interviews. Is it tends to be like a multi-camera setup, or are you specifically trying to look for a mood or something of that nature? It's a pretty wide open question.
Yeah, no, I mean it's tough. I've shot a lot of interviews, and I also shoot narrative, and that's what I really like to do. But it's tough doing that in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always, we've always tried to be cinematic with our filmmaking, and so if you take 7852, for example, everything was shot green screen so we could put people inside of a motel room, and either a motel room or an old Victorian mansion, like the Bates house. So we shot everything green screen, and then we shot background plates. The motel room was a set that we built because we had so many different angles to shoot from, and we found this old Zenith Portal TV to use,
nice.
to display like archival footage, to make it look like people were in an old, motel room, a mid-century motel room, looking at, this old TV and watching Psycho on it. So that was fun. I mean, it was challenging. We never have a lot of money to work with, so we had to come up with creative ways of doing it. And we also wanted to shoot in black and white because we thought it just obviously fit the style. And I love shooting that way too. It's really fun. So we did a few recreations. We went to the Universal lot where they still have a motel set and a house set. I think the facade of the house is original, and the motel set was maybe from one of the sequels, Psycho. But of course, they have like Whoville like right behind the motel, so we're having to shoot around that.
Yeah.
So we just shot all night. We brought in a rain machine, not the most expensive one, and did what we could. Found an old Ford car to match the one in Psycho, and did what we could with the amount of resources we had.
Yeah.
And then for memory, and I don't want to cut you off.
No, that's okay.
And then for memory, we decided to go with a really stark look for the interviews, just one key light, up against black, and to give it a little bit of a claustrophobic feel to it, and make it moody. And you're always trying to do something different with interviews, but it's hard because you have to light people well so they look good, and you have to there are certain rules you have to follow to create a good interview. And we do use multi cameras on every interview, at least two. For William Friedkin, we use 3. I think 1 or 2 days we used 4, just because he was the only interview and we wanted to have many different angles to work with. So yeah.
Nice. As a kid, were you the type of kid that was going around and making your own like Super 8s or short films and stuff with your friends?
I messed around with Super 8 a little bit, regular 8 even. Mostly I took pictures though. More than anything else. I wasn't sure. I mean, I really love cinema and film, and I like photographing people and places. But I thought at one point I'd be like a writer, and then I found out that's not really where my talent lied. So I when I went to film school, finally, I did 2 years of a community college because I just didn't know what I was going to do or what I wanted to do. Then I ended up going to film school in Boulder, Colorado.
Nice.
And I gravitated towards cameras.
Cool.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
And back then too, we had a lot of avant-garde, influence in that particular film school because Stan Brakhage was teaching, and there were other teachers that were more experimental. So I think I got a different education when it came to filmmaking than a lot of young people do when they go to college for that. I mean, we did have kind of the Hollywood side of it too. One of our production teachers was very much into more of that Hollywood style filmmaking.
Mhm.
But it was great to be exposed to these experimental
Yeah.
films. Some of them were really extreme and crazy, and like Kenneth Anger,
Yep.
was an occultist.
Yep.
So that was the first time I experienced Kenneth Anger. So there were a lot of crazy things that sort of ended up influencing me, I think, back then.
Nice. Yeah. Kenneth Anger. How wholesome. Yeah, that's great. It sounds like you had quite the gamut of education. A lot of things to draw from. From that. Um, it, Especially that you can apply now. To get that straightforward content, but how do you do it so that somebody else might not have approached it previously.
Sure.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So with documentaries, because I your partner that you work with, director Alexander Felipe, I've known him probably almost 15 years. I think there was a Klingon documentary that I went and saw that him and Jeff Pointer worked on together. So that was my introduction to him. Have you sat down to talk about doing narrative storytelling, something that's pure fictional that you guys have conceived?
I mean, Alexander's a great screenwriter, and he's got some
Yeah.
some scripts in his trunk. So I mean, I think I definitely try to push him in that direction when I can. But and I've been fortunate enough to shoot some feature narratives in the last few years. But I think it'd be great to work with him in that capacity, and I really hope he at some point decides to go in that direction. But he's I think we saw some documentary projects on the burner, so I think we'd have to get through those first before he thinks about doing another narrative. But I mean, I love doing them. There was one I shot with Christopher Kelly. You must know him from Ink and other films. So he wrote and directed and acted in a low budget, micro budget feature. We shot most of it in LA, and then we came to Colorado and shot a few pickups for it. And it's called The Tangle, and it's been making the festival circuit, mostly genre festivals, and doing pretty well actually. And that was really, we had very little to work with, so it was kind of fun, having to try and make a lot out of very little when it came to money and art materials and crew. Like, we had a very small crew, we had a very small lighting package. We just had to kind of do, but he was smart enough to write the script in a fashion that would be doable in that scenario, where we had very little money to work with. So 95% of it was shot in one location. It was kind of a set we cobbled together in LA in a warehouse, and and then we had enough pickups to kind of expand the scope of it, so it wasn't all in one place. But yeah, I definitely recommend it. I think it's a good film, and I'm proud of it.
Cool.
Especially because it's one of those projects that's super challenging to make, and when you can do that and actually create something of value, worth, so it's a great feeling. So
well, and on top of that, the feature documentary and the feature film work too. You work a lot in television, right? Was it what was that Robert Kirkman series that you were working with?
The AMC series. Yeah. I came in at
comics.
Right. I wasn't the primary on that, but I came in to pick up a few days on it, which was really fun as well. Yeah. Nice. Did some Image Comics. Jim Lee was one of the big ones that I was able to shoot, which was great. He was a great guy. So yeah, I was lucky to get on a few days on that particular one.
That's cool. Yeah, yeah. I grew up on Jim Lee's comic book art, so all the Uncanny X-Men, and then when he jumped ship and went to Wildcats and everything. So that's pretty sweet. Um, yeah, yeah. Well, and I know Alexander has, or used to, didn't he have used to have the Fried Comics outlet?
Yeah, he's still working on
Is
that.
he still working
Yeah,
on that?
I think they're still doing it. Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know. I don't know what they've released lately.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you had any hand in that.
No, I didn't. But it's great stuff. It
Okay.
really is. It's really creative. He works on that with Clay Adams.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean they do a great job with it. So
Nice. Nice. Yeah, because I think you and I talked a little bit about the history of comics. Yeah, I ran into you. What was it at 35 Left Studios? Like they had some kind of thing going on there, and free food. So that brings everybody out. So that's the key. What everything else is. Consequential. But yeah, I think we were talking a little bit about comics and things, and yeah, that was also one of your big influences too as a kid, right? Just another form of storytelling, or
yeah, I mean I like comics quite a bit when I was a kid. I mean I think I was more into. I also loved Famous Monsters magazine,
yeah,
which
nice,
wasn't not in the same category, but eerie and creepy,
right?
and so the Forrest Ackerman stuff, was
Oh,
really
great,
cool. I thought.
nice,
Um, but I also, collected X-Men
yeah,
and Batman and some of the bigger ones, a little bit of Spider-Man. I, I mean, yeah, back in those days without, growing up without internet or anything, I
right.
mean, comics were a big outlet as well as film. So, but certainly I'm not as much of an expert as you are when it comes to comics or knowledgeable
I'm
in some
not. I
different.
just draw 'em. Yeah, yeah. Well, pretty much the same here too. Like when it came to comics, I grew up on Batman and X-Men, and was introduced to Batman and by my mom in order to shut me up in the supermarket. And just like, fine, okay. God, he's so exhausting.
Well, it's hard to I actually at one point thought I was going to be a comic book artist when I was a
Oh, no
kid,
kidding.
but I definitely don't have that, determination and talent I think it takes. And it's really tough. People don't understand how tough it is to be a good comic book artist and to really, it's a talent, and it's just as valid to me as any other art form within that
Yeah,
category, because it just takes a lot to know the human body and to be creative with
right.
panels and to tell a story visually. So I mean, it's very impressive stuff.
Yeah, but you made the attempt though, right? You were
I
trying
drew,
sketching
yeah,
things.
yeah,
Yeah,
a lot. Yeah,
because that sort of thing also informs like storyboards and how to work the camera too. It's like
sure.
all that idea of like placement. How do things operate in three-dimensional space? In front of the camera as well as the human eye. Or cat's eye or something creepy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it helped with storyboards.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever like when you're on set or about to work on a project? Do you ever like sketch things out, or do you wait for somebody to bring you storyboards, or is it something from the just wait for? I guess it's
It
different for
depends.
different projects.
It depends. When I was working on Jamin's film, The Frame, he had everything meticulously storyboarded, through a program, through an app.
Mm.
And so for us, it was more about, there were times when we had to adjust things and improv things.
Mm.
But for his style, where there are a lot of shots quickly edited, that's something that was pretty necessary to have. But for the tango, we didn't have storyboards.
Okay.
We got onto set every day. We talked about what we were going to shoot. We blocked it out with the actors, and we decided how we would shoot it. And interestingly enough, it worked great. And actually, that's how David Cronenberg works too.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you look at like the history of violence, like how is this film not storyboarded?
Right.
Especially the first shot.
It feels so meticulous.
Yeah, and it's well, and I mean, he has an amazing mind,
Yeah.
he works with amazing DPs, and they can really work it out, and make something look like it had been meticulously planned before
Nice.
they showed up. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it takes quite a bit to be able to do that.
That's where the spirit of collaboration really shines.
Absolutely.
When you can, be able to riff like that, even if you have a shorthand.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, even if a film is storyboarded, as I said, you have to improv, and you have to
Yeah.
make decisions on the spot and change things and rework things because of the locations and
Yeah.
maybe the way actors are blocking a scene together. They do something different, and that works better. That you have to then kind of shift
Yeah.
your way of thinking. So I mean, it's all it's all part of the process.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. I do like that onset problem solving, being able to bring it to like the group, and then it's like how do we get from point A to point B, and seeing what kind of manifests from that.
Because you've done your share of filmmaking.
Yeah, it's a couple grades up from porn for sure. Yeah. No, Elise is one of my film partners. Brett's good on catering. but yeah, we whenever I do a project, I want to make sure the subject matter is fun, everybody's having a good time, because a lot of times it's more of a while you have a micro budget, we have non-existent budgets, so it's more of like having that Thanksgiving dinner every day, but we're doing a creative project, and then we break for lunch, and then that's good.
Yeah. I know what that's like too.
Yeah.
I mean, I shoot a lot of proof of concept films.
Yeah.
And that's, we're working with almost nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's you just do what you have to do to make it work. And, it's hard to make a good film. It really is. It's really difficult.
It's pretty tough, especially when you have so many people involved. And then, that's all these, on top of all the other descriptions, all the other nouns that could go wrong. There's always something that, some little monkey wrench that probably should make it, go completely off the rail. So it's always amazing to me to see that there's even a finished project, whether it's, lives up to somebody's idea of good or bad.
Sure.
I think that just kind of opens itself up to interpretation.
Well, I mean, you look at really good directors make mediocre, bad movies. I mean, and of course they're held to higher standards because they have great films, right, in their oeuvre. But I mean, you see it all the time. So even for them, it's difficult.
Yeah.
To make something.
Yeah, very much so.
All the way through. So yeah.
Yeah, just look at the new Men in Black movie.
I haven't looked
at it. That's all right. It's all right.
I couldn't bring myself.
You save those films for plane rides. It's just like, all right, I'm liquored up. Let's watch some crap.
It's true. I've watched a lot of bad films on the plane.
Yeah. Well, when I'm sitting there drawing comic books or working on whatever project, I always got a film going. I'm more or less listening to it, So most of the time, it's not going to be that great, so I don't have to pay attention to it, or it's something I'm very familiar with, so I also don't have to pay attention to it. It's just noise,
Sure.
It's something to distract me with, so that I don't overthink something too much and go off the rails or something, or drown the neighbor's dog. I didn't do it. No. Bob's Burgers usually curbs that.
I haven't seen it, but
Okay, good. Well, yeah, not good. Great. It's great. It's a great series. We love it. So, yeah, man. So, yeah, it seems like. Another thing too is like you seem to be in a position where you can travel and go and film in all these locations. I think earlier before we started, we talked a little bit about Japan and. What was it? India?
I've spent some time in India shooting.
Yeah.
2 months.
But yeah, in Japan, you shot a little. Some of the yeah, some of the Exorcist interview, right up there.
We shot some B-roll.
That
Yeah,
was
we
B-roll.
went because Freakin references one specific Zen garden he went to that profoundly changed him.
Okay.
And so we went there. We shot at that particular temple, which is really tough. Some of the more popular ones, you have to go through a lot of red tape to get in. So we had a very limited amount of time there before and after, they allowed people in. So, and then we had a slider. It was rough. We were just hustling, we were just trying to get as much as we could in a very short amount of time. And then the rest of the time we were there, we just took other B-roll of the city, of things we found on the road. And again, we didn't have permits to shoot in a lot of other places, so we had to ask permission on the spot, or just sort of take some footage on the road, just walking to places. There are a lot of outdoor locations that are cool there. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's definitely really hard work, but it's almost like being on vacation at the same time, just being in a place, a place like that. It's just so different, than anything here, and exotic, So if you're lucky, you have enough time to enjoy yourself a little bit while you're there, and that's
nice.
every now and then.
Yeah. Is there any upcoming project where you get to do a lot more traveling?
There's nothing. We're doing a project about Monument Valley. So we'll be going there a couple times, and we've been there once already. I don't have any overseas travel on the books at the moment. So some of the projects I'm working on now are more local, or around the U.S.
Yeah.
So I mean, I always end up traveling around the U.S. quite a bit as well. So which can be fun, but it's also tough being away.
Oh yeah, because you've got the kids and the wife at home.
Indeed.
Having to deal with the kids.
Yes. Unfortunately. Yeah. So that definitely makes it tough to travel.
Yeah.
But my wife's very understanding about it, of course, because it's my work and that's how I make a living. And so yeah, it's going to be rough for a while they're still so young. But, figure it out.
Yeah. How old are your kids now? Because you just had a newborn, right?
Yeah. So 2 months, and is the youngest, and almost 2.5 years.
Oh, okay. Oh, they are really young. So you already got the terrible twos. One's already talking at you, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes in Korean.
Oh, yeah. Well, at least they're well versed. That's.
She knows more Korean than I do at this point.
Okay. Also speaks English too.
Yes.
Oh
mostly.
My gosh.
I mean,
that's awesome.
Yeah. No, she's learning both languages, but mostly speaks English.
Yeah, kids these days are just absolutely brilliant. Yeah. My niece, Grace, she speaks French and English and sign language. So she's 7 now, but
Still, I wish I had learned a language when I was that young.
Yeah, the only language I tried teaching her is like, no, that's Superman, that's Batman, it's Booster Gold. Oh, Booster Gold. Oh, you got that on your first try.
That's all necessary stuff.
So. It is. That's how you know you're going to go far. As if you know obscure characters at age 2.
Exactly.
That's Miracle Man. No.
Yeah, no, my youngest can already distinguish between Godzilla and King Kong, the Wolfman.
So. You are going to have so much fun with that kid. Oh, that's fantastic. I at that age I couldn't, I don't think, my dad was my gateway drug to all that stuff, but that came like later, like age 8, age 9, age 10, unless somebody left the TV on and when they weren't supposed to. And, then Dan gets curious.
Sure.
So, of course, when we got HBO, it's like, oh, you guys are fucked.
Oh, yeah. That was definitely, the way I saw a lot of films that I couldn't get, my siblings to take me to go see. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I had to sneak a lot of stuff on HBO. It was the only way.
Right. Yeah. It's I'm trying to. Definitely The Exorcist. I think my grandmother must have had HBO for whatever reason, because I don't know, maybe Grandpa was boring. So, but
I think all the Cronenberg films I saw when I was young was on HBO
really,
too. Yeah, I remember seeing Scanners and The Brood.
oh my god,
Maybe They Came From Within.
no,
I have
I don't think
vague
I've.
memories of that.
Well, maybe Videodrome. Yeah, I know I saw Videodrome as pretty early on. That
Hmm.
that certainly left an impression
Yeah, it's a
on
great
on
film.
me. Yeah, that was at that age. I didn't know what I was watching, and then I revisited it. I think back in art school, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's
Scanners was a big thing because a guy's head explodes, and that was like the big
right.
talk among my peers at the time.
Yeah, I never, unfortunately, I never got to see that until art school. Yeah, that was one that I never. Yeah, I always saw the jacket, the VHS jacket at the video store, and just like yeah. Well, we didn't get a video store in our rural hometown until like the late '80s, and so by that time, I was already in my adolescence. So by that time, I was looking for Red Shoe Diaries and Monster Squad. So that was a good mix.
Yeah,
I felt well. Now I'm very well versed.
yeah. Well, we were looking at the video station in Boulder when I went to college, so
Oh,
they had
nice.
a lot of stuff, a lot of obscure stuff.
Yeah, it's neat to be able to find a lot of obscure films and then find it a community of people to always commiserate about that stuff too, and kind of gain that feedback or input. Yeah, another film I caught early on that I always enjoyed. Maybe less so now, but A Company of Wolves
Oh yeah.
with Neil Jordan, by Neil Jordan, Stephen Ray, and um, oh shoot, I'm blanking on her name, but no, 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 she's not. No, that's Brotherhood of the Wolf.
Oh, okay.
No, Murder She Wrote. She wrote.
Angela Lansbury.
Angela Lansbury's in it too.
Oh yeah, that's
She
right.
plays the grandmother.
I didn't see that movie right away. That my first kind of well, I mean, I obviously saw The Wolf Man and all the old Universal movies,
Oh
but
yeah,
my first big like scary werewolf film was American Werewolf in London. I
yeah.
remember, my friend's mom took us to go see that.
Oh,
It scared the
lucky.
hell out of me.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, again, I was,
Yeah.
I must have been 10 or so at the
Mhm.
time, and it was a pretty scary film at that age,
Right.
and just, but also great sense of humor, and
Yeah.
I loved it.
That was one of those for me early on. It's like, okay, the marriage of humor and horror, really do go hand in hand. I think the results for both end up being the same, and that film really utilized that pretty well. So kind of you have the little comedy spot, and then here comes the horrific thing that after it to kind of accelerate everything and intensify things and make sure that you can have a good time, but there's still dread right around the corner.
Mhm.
And that's always a great tool.
Mhm.
Well, and interestingly enough too, like Alien, would do that too. The introduction to the characters when they're sitting there chatting, they're
Yeah.
bullshitting each other like anybody would do. It's like, oh my gosh, this is the most naturalistic
Like a bunch of Teamsters just
feeling
hanging out,
thing. Yeah, pretty much.
bullshitting.
Yeah.
No, it lent a certain quality. It gave you empathy towards them as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great way to get you hooked into a character that you start to care about, that then becomes in peril at some point.
Mhm.
It makes horror much more effective that way, I think, when you can do that properly. And
Right.
some movies are just goofy, like Return of the Living Dead, right? Which
Right.
are funny and
Yeah.
scary, but not probably funnier than they are scary.
Yeah.
So
They don't really take themselves, seriously, at all. Also, written and directed by Dan O'Bannon.
yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see Alien, and then a few, like 4 or 5 years later, jump into Return of the Living Dead. But
yeah.
but I think when it comes to zombie films, like Dawn of the Dead for me, Night of the Living Dead, and then Return of the Living Dead, it's like that's pretty much enough. That's like a well-rounded meal. so to speak. But yeah, that's great. Um, yeah, it's wonderful elements, you know, to have in your bag um, for storytelling. And I think that's another thing too, you know, with documentaries. You know, it's like, you know, it can be a platform that's usually looked at as being dry, but it's not. It's an amazing art form, and it's another way, you know, to lay out a story. And sometimes, you know, I'd imagine, I don't know if, you know, if you guys, when you sit down to do a documentary, do you have everything like framed out? Is everything just meticulous, or do you have to just let it grow organically and see where things lead you?
Well, I think like People versus George and Doc of the Dead were more like that. You
Mm,
know, I think Alexander really was very meticulous with 7852, and he was much more structured in how he approached that one.
yeah.
Because he knew a lot about Hitchcock and he really had a certain idea where he wanted to take that. But obviously, people, when you get into these interviews and people open up different avenues of interest around that subject, and you know, you become compelled to pursue those
Yeah.
other avenues, and so it changes the story in some way. But structurally, I think um, some documentaries definitely they kind of make themselves as we go along, and take us to places we didn't actually expect to go, and others are a little more structured. But there's always a certain amount of uh, improvisation and
Mm,
unpredictability to the way they, you know, form themselves.
yeah.
So it really just depends. But you
That's
know, there
cool.
are documentaries that like The Imposter that
Hmm.
go back and tell a very specific story and even have like very specific recreations. Have you ever seen that particular
I
film?
haven't seen that one.
There's, I mean, at least half of it are really well done cinematic recreations of the story with actors basically standing in for the real people, and
Nice.
it's really well done. And it, you know, of course, documentaries like that have to be very specific in the way they tell a story. And I'm sure Errol Morris is like that too in
Mm,
some of his work.
yeah.
Thin Blue Line, I'm sure, was more structured
Yeah.
than maybe Fog of War, say. But
Mm, okay.
um, but yeah, I mean, it just really depends on the subject matter, what kind of documentary.
Is there any like moment on set or behind, you know, maybe even more specific behind the camera that still you know, sticks with you and you find, you know, incredibly endearing?
Just while I'm shooting something.
Yeah. Was there like an instant that just like, oh, I'm so glad I captured
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely times when you're, um, you know, I remember years back I was working on a film called Skills Like This. Monty Miranda directed. I
that?
wasn't
Okay.
the primary DP; it was Robert Smith, and I was a second camera operator on it. And I remember doing some handheld work, and we were doing a scene where one character throws the other up against the wall, and I just happened to like pan with them and just hit the moment
Nice.
exactly, and it was you know, I mean, a lot of it was fortuitous, but so, you know, there are moments where you're shooting in that kind of style, like a verite style, when
Hmm.
you just hit a frame exactly right, or move with something an actor's doing that's a little bit more unpredictable.
Yeah.
You know that. Um, I mean, sometimes just everything just kind of gels, and it just, you know, it's like a perfect storm, and it all comes together in one moment. And other times it's just listening to an interview and having somebody reveal something you didn't expect, you
Right.
know. So I mean, and that happens quite often too. So yeah. If I think of another moment, I'll let you know. But it took me
Okay.
off guard a little bit, so
Oh,
I'd have to really think about it. But those are things
sorry.
that kind of,
Yeah.
you know, come to mind.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I think we're just about running out of time here.
Right.
So, you know, where can people go to learn a little bit more about Exhibit A films? And in some of those projects?
Well, there's exhibitapictures.com.
Okay.
That I don't know. We haven't really updated it as much as we should have. Hopefully, Leap of Faith's on there now. That's the problem with being a low-budget documentary company too. You're doing everything yourself. You know,
Yeah.
doing all of our web design. But that's a good resource. IMDb, of course. It's a great resource. But you know, everything's out there except I think Dock of the Dead was like the company that executive produced it took it offline for a while.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's available right now. And Leap of Faith, we're still working on that.
Nice.
But everything else is you can find it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Robert, thanks so much for coming out on Black Friday and braving the cold weather that is Colorado. It looks like there's a nice mist that's coming. It's the fog. It's the mist. Yeah, let's split hairs at this point. You know, let's just say either Adrian Barbeau or some H.P. Lovecraftian creature will be coming through there. Preferably Adrian Barbeau. She's more of a conversationalist, and she seems like a sweet grandma this time around. So anyway, thanks again for coming out on the holiday weekend. We're losing light because now we're very dark and we're very grainy, and it's like ooh, spooky. It lit up there, so he's better lit. I've got started. Lord of the Rings. Bong. But yeah, thanks so much. It was a lot of fun to sit and chat with you and learn a little bit more about what you do and what keeps you sane. So this is Dan for COFOH Live Undead, and we've got just one more interview this year, and then we'll close out the season. That's with some of our co-founders. We'll just be chatting up favorite, what have you, in December. So we're almost there. All right. Thanks again, sir.
Thanks. Pleasure.
All right. Have a good one.